the major factor that would make this election free, fair, and acceptable to Nigerians is the fact that Nigerians themselves are determined to do what is right because of the level of mismanagement they've suffered in the past 16 years of PDP and then 8 years of the APC. So what the police is saying means nothing to us politicians. But what we know from the feelers we're getting from the field, the only thing I can tell you is that Nigerians are the police of this election. They are determined to do what is right. So whether police is deployed massively or not, it doesn't change anything. Nigerians are determined to change and bring into existence the government they want. So whether police is there or not, I can tell you that we're expecting a very free, fair, and credible election. Well, certainly from two angles. From the first angle, yes, it's going to affect movement, especially movement of people, as we go about prosecuting this election. That's one major effect. Of course, if there is no fuel, for instance, people will be unable to move about freely. If there is no cash, even those who should be able to move from one point to the other, maybe to be able to cast their votes, they will have difficulties moving around. But I can tell you that the violence you are seeing now, we have been appealing. In the past 48 hours, we've been appealing, using all the medium, to tell Nigerians that what we need now is not violence. What we need now is to wait patiently for that day to come so that we can effect that change that we want to effect and then ensure that, because one of the things we have going for us as Nigerians now is the fact that for the first time we are determined and committed towards ensuring that we take our destiny in our hands. So, and you can see accusations and counter accusations. Some are saying that the present difficulties is orchestrated to frustrate one candidate or the other. But the most interesting thing is that it's the same party that is in power. Their candidate is accusing the party on which it's running, of bringing about these difficulties just to, close his gaps of, his chances of winning the election and all of that. So, two angles. It's interesting to see it happening from within the same party. It's also interesting to say that, when God rises on your side, he does things that are supernatural. So what is happening is the fact that God has risen on the part of the ordinary Nigerians. He wants to rescue Nigeria and Nigerians, and that's why this confusion is everywhere. I am sure you are not seeing NNPP accusing anybody or anybody accusing NNPP of being part of this drama. I am also not saying it from other political parties. This is the same party that is in power that has inflicted these pains and difficulties on Nigerians that is accusing itself. You see one governor accusing the president. You see the president saying this. You see one minister saying that. You see this one saying this and all of that. So it's very interesting. But I can tell you that at the end of it all, the insinuations that they want to railroad us into a chaotic situation so that the election wouldn't hold, because they've gauged the mood of Nigerians, which is that they are heading towards colossal defeat. So what they want to do is to, set in confusion so that there would be room for anybody to want to tamper with the conduct of the election. But I can tell you that INEC under Professor Mahmoud Yakub is determined to go on. They have all their logistics in place according to him, and we are sure because we've worked with him over time and I know how determined he is. So we're good to go. The political parties are also ready. The one that is not ready is the one in power, which is still busy accusing one side of it or the other and so on and so forth. But for us, we're good to go, and this is an election that I'm very, very sure the NNPP will win. So I urge Nigerians to ignore all of this. The pains is temporal. I'm sure that after Sunday next week, we would know that we'll know where we're going to, and then all these difficulties will be over. It's just a matter of days. No, first, let me let you know the reason behind the creation of additional polling units. Let's start from there. The position of our law is that there's a ceiling. There's a particular number that of voters that should make up a polling unit. I think it's about 500 or so. So the implication is that once you have more than 500 voters in one polling unit, you have to move the excess of that 500. You create an additional polling unit and move them there. That was, in the first place, what informed the reasons for the creation of additional polling units. And then the surge for registration, when the window for registration opened, because of the level of anger, the level of poverty, the level of difficulties, Nigerians moved massively to register. This also affected, and then brought about the need for more polling units to be created. But if you listen to the reasons that the INEC chairman gave, why INEC has come to this conclusion that those polling units wouldn't have electoral materials is quite clear. He's saying that there are no indications that there are registered voters to utilize whatever would be the electoral materials you will take there. So to be on the safe side, it's better not to deploy materials to such a place where there will be no people to utilize them. When you take, for instance, ballot papers to a polling unit where there are no voters, it doesn't make any sense. It's a recipe for manipulation. So what he's saying is correct, and he has taken his time. He called a special meeting, of leaders of political parties to discuss that with them, and I think that's transparent enough. So we have to understand that he has done that in good faith, and so we have to believe that there is nothing fishy anywhere, that is driving him into taking such a decision. Remember, that's a commission that is made up of not just him, but a lot of commissioners. So they would have done their appraisal, they would have done their analysis and all of that, and from records available to them, there are no voters to utilize whatever will be the materials taken there. And so, in order not to create doubts in the minds of Nigerians, the safest thing to do is to, tell us ahead of time that voting wouldn't take place in those polling units. We believe that now that the level of consciousness and awareness of our voters has risen significantly, I'm sure that by 2027, there would be voters to utilize those polling units that have been created out of necessity. First, let viewers know that the peace accord itself is just a moral instrument. There's no legal force behind it. It's just a gentleman agreement where parties and candidates come together to say, okay, we commit to ensuring that we have a process that is free, fair, and credible for people, and to create an atmosphere for people to be able to willingly express their desires as to who they want to have in positions of authority and all of that. And I remember that when this idea came, I think about 2-3 electoral cycles ago, some of us as party leaders were questioning its implementability. The question has always been, what is the binding force behind this? Is it really binding? And that's where we are. There is no legal instrument that is there to make it enforceable. And so people just commit to it, and when they leave, they go to do what they want to do. That's number one. The second aspect of it is the fact that because of the nature of society we have, where the poor is tied, to the wings of those from whom they pick up crumbs to be able to move on and all of that, they go most times to the extent of doing sometimes even what their principal wouldn't want to do ordinarily. So if you look at this violence you're talking about, you see that most of this violence, they are not really engineered by those who have gone to sign this peace accord. It's just like maybe out of cult-like followership. You see the followers of His Excellency Rabi Musa Kwankwaso going to say this is what we want to do and all of that. It's not Kwankwaso that is saying that. It's out of zeal, overzealousness, that somebody who wants to tell the world he loves Kwankwaso so much would go out of his way. Kwankwaso himself, for instance, is a peace-loving person. But somebody who wants to express his love for him would want to do things, to the extreme and all of that. So the second side of it is that most times, even when those who sign this accord, the candidates themselves are committed to ensuring that there's a peaceful atmosphere. There's no guarantee that their followers are also able to stay in that spirit, and so we can understand that. But generally, the bulk also rests on the tables of the candidate to ensure that their followers, remain sticked to the spirit of what they have signed as their principle. So, but I think going forward, we have said it repeatedly, we should be looking for how to legally institutionalize, this peace accord, so that it would have some binding force, and that would also provide the parameter for reprimand. That is, when people go against it, at least the law should be there to say, you've gone against this, and then this is the punishment and all of that. Except that is done. It's only a moral instrument that is not implementable legally. And so you can't hold people to it to say, it must be this. That's number one. Then you can't also sanction somebody who has abused the provisions of the peace accord. And so my advice going forward is that we have said it repeatedly. We've told His Excellency the chairman, and the secretary, that's Abdul Salami and Bishop Kuka, repeatedly that they should explore ways of seeing how this can find its way into the grand norm, either the Constitution or the Electoral Act, so that it would have more chances of Nigerians being able to, watch its provision, and then the security agencies should also be able to implement what should be the punishments when they are violated and all of that. Well, I have told you that there are people that are triggering crisis here and there, those who are not ready for this election. The APC is number one. Yes, you can see them fomenting trouble. I listened to His Excellency, the Governor of Edo State, yesterday night on the TV, appealing to his people. These are, orchestrated attempts to ensure that there is violence because they are not ready for this election. Like I said, theirs is a house that is divided against itself. The war that is ravaging them inside is greater than the challenges they are facing from the stronger political parties the stronger opposition parties like the NNPP and then maybe the PDP or the Labour Party. Of course, the NNPP is number one as far as constructive opposition is concerned now. So the challenges they are facing from us is not, as far as they are concerned, is not even their problem now. Their problem is the war within. You see governors coming out to say, just this morning I was reading the governor of Kaduna State saying that 500 naira notes and 1,000 notes are still legal tender in his state. And I had to refer to him fondly as maybe he is now the president of the Federal Republic of Kaduna State. Of course, because the instrument, the constitution is very clear on who has the right over what happens to our currency. And it's the president. So if the president has taken a decision, to say, okay, this is what we want, this is what we do not want, and all of that. And then a governor somewhere, maybe because his needs are not being met, he wanted somebody, maybe he wanted a situation where they would overrun Nigerians like they've always done as parties in power, and then that is not working because of the level of consciousness of Nigerians now. He is seeing that their chances are dimming every day. So what we are seeing now is threats. I expect more. I know that so many of the APC governors are also in court against their own government. It's very interesting, but let's see how that plays out. So what I can say is there are attempts by APC leaders, governors, sitting governors, ministers and all of that, to foment crisis here and there so that they can create room for this election to be shifted. But like I said, Nigerians have refused to give in to that antics. That's why I was very, very pleased seeing the governor of Edo State addressing his people yesterday, telling them to maintain the cool. This change that you are looking for is not achievable when you are on the street. It's achievable through the efficacy of the PVC. And so what we would say is we ignore this crisis they are fomenting. These are man-made crises that they are trying to foist on us to ensure that this election does not go on. And we are aware of these intrigues. We are talking to Nigerians. We believe that we will overrun them. The truth is that we have an atmosphere that is charged, but 7 days or 9 days to a presidential election, I am sure that by the time we are 4 days away from the election, you will see a more peaceful atmosphere, which will be created because of the determination of Nigerians to do what is right, which is to use the PVC to send these people away. And I can tell you we will send them away, and Nigeria will be at peace. So far, so good, we're at peace. And I have also told somebody, in the past, countdown to general election like this, you see a lot of killings. But because Nigerians are determined to do what is right, you see minimal killing, except in pockets of killings in a few states that are at war against themselves, like Imo State and all of that. But if you look at, you take statistics of the 36 states and the FCT, you see that this is one election that hasn't recorded massive killings like we've seen in the past. And that goes to attest to the fact that Nigerians for the first time want to ensure that they don't do anything that will foreclose the chances of this election holding, because they are determined to do this. And I can tell you that the anger with which Nigerians are going to the polls is heavier than what we saw in 2015, which led to the ouster of the PDP. This time around, Nigerians are determined to deal with two common enemies, the APC and the PDP. And so we are peaceful and we are moving on. Yeah.